How to pass data from parent to child component and from child to parent component. So we use input decorator to pass the value from parent to child component. We use input decorator in child component as this component receives the input from the parent component. So I will show one example for input decorator. So first step, we have to create a child component. So for that we have to go to terminal and then we have to create a child component. Okay. So here we have to execute ng generate component command. So it will create a child component. Okay. So after child component is created, and next step we have to add this child component selector inside the parent component HTML file. So we have to go to child component TS file. So this is the selector. Okay. We have to add the selector inside the parent component HTML file. So, so this is the second step. After adding the selector, we have to navigate to browser. So if you go to browser, here we can see both parent and child component. Okay. So this is the second step. And next step, we have to create one variable and it should be decorated with @input decorator inside the child component. So we have to go to child component.ts file. So here we have to declare one property that should be decorated with @input decorator. So first we have to import input, then we have to declare one variable that should be decorated with input decorator. Okay. And so after this we have to go to parent component.ts file. So this is a parent component.ts file. Here we have to declare one property and we have to assign a value. Okay. And then so here in parent component.html file we have to use property binding. Okay. So this is the child variable. Okay. And to this we have to assign parent property value. Okay. So here Angular will evaluate this expression and then it will bind the value of parent class property to a child component input decorator. Okay. So last step, we have to access this child component decorator inside a child HTML file. So if you go to child HTML file, you can access that property using interpolation. Okay. So after this, we have to go to the browser. So if we go to browser, you can see the value. Okay. So this is the value from parent component and we are displaying in child component. Okay. So this is an example for @input decorator. So I will explain the steps once again. First, we have to create a child component and then we have to add the child component selector inside the parent component HTML file. Okay. This is the first step. And next, we have to declare one property that should be decorated with @input decorator inside the child component.ts file. Okay. And then we have to go to parent component.ts file. We have to create one property and we have to assign a value. So this is the value which will be passed to child component. And then we have to go to parent component.html file. Here we are using property binding where we are assigning a parent component property value to a child component input decorator. Okay. And last step, we have to access this child input decorator inside the child component HTML file. Okay. So after this, we have to navigate to browser. Output will be displayed. So this is all about @input decorator. Okay. And these are the steps to pass the data from parent component to the child component. And next, output decorator. So we use this decorator to pass the data from the child component to a parent component. First, we have to import output and event emitter classes. Okay. So we have to go to child component.ts file. So here we have to import output and event emitter. Next, we have to declare one variable that should be decorated with @output decorator. Okay. So here event emitter is a class, and here we are assigning a type of data that we want to emit to a parent class component. Okay, so here in this case we are assigning a string, and then we have to create one method. So here notify parent is a method, and this method will emit an event using output property, and then it will call emit method of an event emitter class, and then it will pass this string value to a parent class method. Okay, so after creating this method we have to create one button, and when we click on this button we have to execute this method. Okay, so after creating a button we have to go to parent component.html file. So here we have to use event binding. Okay, so we have to go to child component. So this is the output property, so we have to use same property over here, and we have to create one method. Okay, parent method. So here dollar $event is a variable which is used to bind the value of child component to a parent component. Okay, so after this we have to go to parent component.ts file. So here we have to create that method. Okay, so we have to create this method, and this variable will also value of child component. So when we go to browser and when we click on the button we will get the value. Okay, this is the value which we are getting it from child component to a parent component, and we can access this value inside the parent html file also. Okay, so for that we have to create one property. Then we have to assign child class value to a parent class property. Okay, after that we can access this inside the parent html file. So here we can access using interpolation. So if you go to browser and then when we click on this will display output. Okay, so this is the value where we are getting it from child component to a parent component. Okay, this is all about output decorator. And next, what are decorators in Angular? Decorators in Angular are used to modify the behavior of classes, methods, properties, and the parameters. So decorators are declared using @ symbol followed by a decorator name. So if you go to the component.ts file, so this is the decorator. Okay, here we have @ symbol followed by a decorator name, and inside this decorator, this is a metadata. Okay, so decorators in Angular add the metadata to classes, methods, properties, and parameters. This metadata determines how the component should be processed at runtime. So we have four different types of decorators in Angular. First one is a class decorator. So @ng module and component belongs to class decorator. Next we have property decorator. @input and output belongs to property decorator. And next we have a method decorator. @host listener belong to method decorator. And next we have parameter decorator. @inject belongs to parameter decorator. So these are four different types of decorators available in Angular. What is the class decorator? In Angular, class decorator is a TypeScript feature which is used to extend the behavior of a class. So it is represented by @ symbol followed by a decorator name, and it is applied directly above the class declaration. So if we go to component.ts file, so this is the class declaration, and above this class declaration we have a component decorator. Okay, a class decorator as a class constructor which accesses only a single parameter which is used to add a metadata to a class. Okay, example for class decorators are ng module and @component. So this is all about a class decorator. So what is a metadata in Angular? Metadata provides information about the components, modules, and services in Angular. This metadata is used for extending classes using decorators. So Angular uses this metadata to determine how components, services, and modules should be instantiated, compiled, and used in Angular applications. So a component has a decorator and it contains metadata like template URL, selector, and styles URL. Okay, few properties are mandatory, few are optional. So if you go to app component.ts file, so here I can remove this template URL. Okay, so this is optional, whereas so this is optional, and here I can use template. Okay, see, okay, this is the template. And if we remove the selector, we will get an error because it is mandatory. Okay, see, here it is mandatory and output is not visible. So if we go to console, we will get errors. Okay, so that means this selector is mandatory. Okay, a module class has a decorator and it contains metadata like declarations, exports, imports, providers, and bootstrap. So if you go to app module.ts file, so this is metadata. Okay, so here module metadata is different from the component metadata. Okay, so this is the component metadata. So we have services, so for that we have different metadata. Okay, this is all about metadata.